Alright, hello everybody, episode 3 here. We were unable to save Anna. We've discovered that someone named Golbez is in charge of the Red Wings now and being a little bit belligerent about it. We got ourselves a hovercraft, and here, I believe, is the cave where we will fight, or, well, at least try to get the SandRuby from the Antlion. So, let's do it! Edward is an interesting character because he focuses a lot on status effects, which makes him useful early in the game, but not so useful later in the game. Fortunately, it's still the early game. Now the question with these guys is, do they do what I think they do? I think that you want to use the color, the same element as the color of the slime in order to hurt it. Yeah, okay, so far that's held. The previous ones were blue when we used ice on them. Or no, they were red and we used fire on them, and now we've got a set that's yellow and we use lightning on them. Probably we'll find some blue ones that we use ice on later, and there's even more than that actually in this game. There's quite a few palette swaps, but anyway. Okay, that's interesting. You can't use items if they're not equipped, which seems strange, but there it is. It's almost not worth wasting arrows on these guys. You'll notice that Rydia already has a MP max of 85, which puts her pretty close to where Tella was, which is pretty funny, but that's how it is. Charm Harp is a pretty significant upgrade for his attack power, plus instead of putting enemies to sleep, it makes them attack each other, which is even better. Now this is an interesting case. We have a save point. I know what it does. We have a save point that is actually at a dead end, effectively. But we can use a tent and rest. One thing about this game is that it really has a great design. Simple but effective for the save point. It's like an ivory rune carved into the ground, you know? I don't know, that's the way I always thought of it. It was like a big, wide piece of pure white ivory that you know, kept monsters away or something. But you know, other Final Fantasy games have like made it just like a little thing that like blinks or something. But I think this is kind of where it's at. It actually has some kind of presence in the world. You know, I was about to complain that basilisks here don't do stone stuff very often, but he did it to himself right there, which means that we actually do need to watch out for them, because stone is a dangerous power in this game. You know, now that I think back about it, actually Petrify is not that bad in this game because it's not instantaneous. It actually has a time period that it takes to take effect. So maybe I'm wrong about Petrify being that bad. Because if I remember correctly in this game, if you get hit with Petrify, like your feet turn gray first, and then your body does, and then your head does. But it takes a while, so it's not actually as bad as I'm remembering. This might be our first time attacked from behind, but as you can see, it can be pretty devastating. They all got attacks off first, and we also had to waste a turn changing our formation, so... Putting Rydia and Edward in the front for a while is not good for them. Okay, I was just checking to make sure that this doesn't have any, like, little T-junction somewhere that leads somewhere interesting, but apparently it does not. Those sandworms are a lot easier than they look. Especially consider how many experience points and gold coins they give us, which is just not that much. Doesn't look so tame to me. There we go, that's what we want to do. Chocobo. Found the SandRuby, at the cost of making the Antlion extinct. The problem with warp in this particular dungeon is that if it brings us to the top floor, it'll bring us to where that save point is, basically. So we have to kind of make part of the walk back anyway. Exit is a much better spell for that application. Yeah, we probably don't need to use a tent. We can just hoverboard back to Kaipo and we should be good to go. Now this is something unique here because it gives you the choice of different items to use, and unless you use the right one, there's no effect. So, anyway. What does it mean to use the SandRuby over someone? We'll never know. And nobody ever asked where that water hag came from. That's actually a good reminder. So what we can do, right now we're kind of stuck in a 3 front, 2 rear, but change just flips that. So then I can do that. And probably that too. Rosa, as a white wizard, has a tendency to use bows and arrows. She's a little bit better at it than Rydia is. But we should probably stock up on some arrows while we have a chance. Also, L and R. Or I guess just R. I'm a little surprised that the townsfolk, like, things that they say hasn't changed, but apparently it's all the same, which is kind of a shame. The armor shop doesn't have anything good for us at this point, but I think we can buy some arrows at the weapon shop. Figured it wouldn't be such a bad idea to look around. I was kind of hoping that there'd be a chocobo forest somewhere, but apparently there is not one in this area. Well, maybe there is one over here. Alright, here is Mount Hobbs. Cecil, you're missing something there. And so there was a story reason why she learned lightning and ice 1, but didn't learn fire. It's that kind of cute little detail that, you know, really kind of helps make this game kind of stick in your mind. Rosa has an aim ability, which gives her the ability to do a lot more good with a bow than someone without aim. So it doesn't take up a lot of extra time either, so it's a pretty good skill. Of course, later on in the game, she'll be doing a lot more white magic, but for now, we're in pretty good shape. You'll notice that already his stuff isn't doing that much charming anymore. Edward's ability to do status ailments is rapidly becoming useless. Okay, there's one, at least. A little late, though. Note that bows and arrows do extra damage to flying enemies. Weak is a weird spell that drops an enemy's hit points down to single digits, basically. Or yours, if you get hit by it. It's a pretty dangerous spell, honestly, because it, followed immediately by any kind of AoE, is a party wipe, basically. So in case you haven't noticed, Yan is pretty awesome. It's so funny how they can say, like, oh, I was the only survivor of that monster attack, and then Cecil's like, I had to defeat her mother. Super Nintendo era censorship was so spotty. If you've seen my playthrough of Illusion of Gaia, it's like, how did these things get through? And they did censor some things, but like they just totally missed the boat on a bunch of stuff. So I don't know. A 5-person party. You don't get these in Final Fantasy pretty much ever again. I mean, I think that Final Fantasy V had... No, that was only 4 people too, wasn't it? 6, 7, 8, 9... No, this might be the last Final Fantasy where you... 1 and 2... Yeah, this might be the only Final Fantasy where you get a 5-person party. Interesting. Well, by the way, Jan is another one of those characters that starts out kind of developed. Starts out at level 10 with us. He just leveled up to 11, so he starts at the same level that Cecil was at the start of the game, just a little while ago. So, you know, he's an experienced warrior as well. That is something I was hoping I would get to show off at some point. If Edward gets hit to the point where he is in, like, physical danger, he will use his hide ability automatically, which is kind of nice. Doesn't save him from getting killed by monsters at some point, but it also makes him impossible to control. Because he hides before you can actually do something with him. It's kind of ridiculous. Cure 2 is a big deal. Learning Cure 2 is a huge increase in healing per second, I guess. Jan's downside is that he's so slow that, you know, we could have taken out pretty much everybody with a kick there, but he was the last one to move, so... This is what I wanted to find. Here's a chocobo field. There's a couple of cool things you can do here. Number one, white chocobos restore MP and are reusable. So you can restore MP, or you can use up all your MP healing everybody and end up restoring basically everybody. It works pretty well. You have to catch them, which can be a little bit of pain at times, but it's not so bad. And then, this big open area here, you can actually use a carrot, as they mentioned earlier in the game. Big chocobo. And we can store items with him, like the elixir, the shadow stuff, the dreamer. Everything else we'll hang on to. I don't think he has anything. Nope, he doesn't start with anything, so there he is, too. And then, of course, the yellow chocobos give us monster-free movement over an area. And here's Fabul. So yeah, I think we'll call it here, and next time we will find out what happens in Fabul. So yeah, this has been episode 3 of Final Fantasy II US, Final Fantasy IV in Japan, but an easier version, and something that I grew up with. But anyway, that's what I've got for this week for you. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.